Smokey Bear has been an American fire prevention icon since his image was created in 1944. The large cartoon bear in the ranger hat was created to help remind wartime America to protect the forests. In 1944, the fire prevention slogan was, "Smokey says, care will prevent 9 out of 10 forest fires." In 1947, Rudy Wendelin became the sole artist of Smokey's ad campaign, and the slogan was changed. It was in 1947 that Smokey became known for his popular catchphrase, "Only you can prevent forest fires." A role model for adults and children alike, Smokey's fictitious character took on a whole new face after May 1950. On May 4th, 1950, a raging forest fire broke out in the Capitan Mountain of southern New Mexico. It was believed that sparks from a campsite cook stove set off the blaze, and high winds increasing to 70 miles per hour spread the fire quickly. While the first fire raged, a second fire, also believed to be caused by human carelessness, began burning on May 6th in the same mountain area. A group of firefighters quickly converged on the scene to battle the blazes that had now come together in one huge wind-driven wildfire. G.W. Chapman, a 20-year-old U.S. Forest Service rookie firefighter, was one of 24 men in the group that was fighting the biggest blaze they had ever seen. At one point, the men in Chapman's group were almost killed when dry winds whipped the fire toward them. They were forced over a rocky ledge and crouched low beneath the fire, where they remained until the blaze crowned in the trees and burned past them. Amidst the devastation, firefighters found a tiny cub clinging to the top of a tree. He was to become the heart and soul of a campaign that had begun almost a decade earlier.
Hi, I'm Gary Chapman. I work here at Alamogordo High School, and I had the pleasure of being the son of G.W. Chapman, the person that actually got Smokey Bear out of the fire. And it was quite a story to lead up to that, and I didn't know much about it until later years, but when my dad was about 20 years old, he worked for the Forest Service, and they were out on a big fire near Capitan, and the wind was blowing, and the fire pretty much overtook their fire crew, and they had to cover up and lay down on a rock ledge and let the fire burn over them. And when the fire was finished burning over them, they uncovered themselves, and they were all kind of sitting there making sure everybody was still alive and uninjured and whatever. And they heard this noise, and they looked up in a tree, and there was a little bear up in the tree that was all singed, and his paws were burnt and things like that, and he was kind of crying, I guess, for a bit.
When the man-made blaze was finally under control, it had burned over 18,000 acres. But amazingly, the little cub had survived by climbing up into the tree. The firefighters immediately noticed that the little cub had badly damaged paws and hind legs. Once the cub was out of the tree, the men began to search for its mother in the blackened and bare remains of the forest. However, finding no sign of her, they had to assume she had lost her life in the fire, and began the trip with the little burned bear cub back to base camp. A New Mexico game warden was called in and met the burned bear cub. Hotfoot Teddy, as the firemen fondly called him, was immediately flown to Santa Fe, where he was treated at the Smith Veterinary Hospital for his burns. Ray Bell, New Mexico game warden, personally cared for Teddy at his home. It wasn't long before the director of the New Mexico Department of Game and Fish had an idea. They would offer Hotfoot Teddy as their safety ad icon to the U.S. Forest Service. As the country followed the little cub's progress, the Forest Service rechristened him Smokey Bear, and he immediately came to personify the advertising character created during World War II. Little Hotfoot Teddy had been given a new name and was headed for a new home. He had become the first living symbol of the fire prevention campaign. Smokey Bear had arrived. Shortly after his rescue in 1950, Smokey found his permanent home in Washington, D.C. at the Smithsonian's National Zoo. Smokey had 4 million visitors a year who came to the zoo to see him and take pictures of the living fire prevention icon. By 1953, Smokey was receiving so much fan mail at the zoo that the U.S. Post Office gave him his own zip code. In 1961, the Smokey Bear Museum and Gift Shop opened in Capitan, New Mexico, near his birthplace. The museum, housed in a rustic one-room building, is still open every day and is filled with Smokey memorabilia, photos, and posters that chronicle the history of Smokey Bear and his fire prevention campaign. Smokey Bear lived out his life as the National Zoo's most beloved bear. After Smokey became an adult, the zoo introduced him to Goldie, a female bear. While the two were the best of friends for many years, sadly, no cubs resulted from the pairing as keepers had hoped. Smokey lived until 1976, when he passed away quietly in his sleep. He was 26 years old, or almost 80 in bear years. The zoo staff and his keepers still tell stories of Smokey's antics and the ways in which he entertained his visitors. A short time after his death, Smokey Bear was flown back to New Mexico. He was laid to rest in a nature park beside the Smokey Bear Museum in Capitan, near the place where his life began. Thousands of people visit the site each year. The Smokey Bear Campaign is the longest-running public service campaign in U.S. history, with its forest fire prevention message remaining unchanged for more than 50 years. Created in 1944, the message remained unchanged until April 2001, when the Ad Council updated Smokey's message to address the increasing number of wildfires and the nation's wildlands. Smokey's legacy lives on. His image is recognized everywhere in America, and his message is clear. He's the burly black bear in the blue jeans and ranger hat that keeps the forest and wildlands safe by reminding everyone that only you can prevent wildfires.